our office hours. Thank you everyone for joining. We really appreciate your time. Today is our weekly office hours, so I'll just go over a quick reminder that we have weekly office hours for those in US and EMEA on every Wednesday from 8 to 9 a.m. And we also have a monthly office hours for those who are in APAC on the second Wednesday of each month from 4 to 5 p.m. In between our office hours, if you have questions or any issues, we're very active as a team on GitHub. And so we go through and triage issues and GitHub discussions daily. And so that's another great avenue to go through and be able to give us feedback as well. I'm going to put some links in chat, but I just want to cover a couple of quick updates. There is a new release of Python for 1.20.0, and there is a big update on the chat history reducer. There is some other items there as well that you can go through and test out. But if you haven't had a chance to go through and look at that new Python update, we'd recommend you take a minute. It's that first link in chat as well for releases that you can dive into. And then we also, I highlighted this last week for .NET, and so just highlighting it again, we have 1.36.0 that's out, and there is some changes in terms of adding traces for agent invocations and being able to have a Crew AI plugin and some other items there as well. So if you haven't had a chance to check out our .NET latest release, that's another great one to check out. There's a number of new blogs that we're publishing, and we have our roadmap deck out. And so thank you everyone for joining into office hours and giving us feedback. And we've gone through and finalized out our plan. We also have a blog post out of being able to use all of your different models, of using DeepSeek as a potential model. And so going through walkthrough in detail there as well. And then we actually have another blog post, which I'll actually dovetail into having Dimitro dive into, for using Azure OpenAI chat completion with data source and then your function calling as well. And so that's for the blog post. I put a link to the blogs in chat, but I'll go ahead and turn it over to Dimitra.
Yeah, sure. Let me share my screen real quick. And please let me know when you can see it.
Perfect. I can see it now.
Okay. Yeah, so if you use Azure OpenAI connector, basically there is a possibility to ask questions and get some response from AI model based on your data. So for example, imagine you have some data stored in your Azure AI search instance. Like for example, here I have some information about two scientists, Emily and David. And then of course, by default, model doesn't know anything about this data, right? But for example, when I define my prompt execution settings, what I can do, I can specify Azure chat data source property, and basically this property, it's basically an object that contains some information about my Azure AI search instance, like endpoint, authentication, and then index name. And then as soon as I specify it, basically what I can do, I can ask some questions to the model specifically related to my data, and take into account that I included this, enabled this Azure chat data source. I'm able to get some results and responses from AI model based on my data. So we noticed that there is like very common request to use this data property together with function quality. So basically, you specify function shows behavior, and you want to use data source together with enabled automatic function calling. So fortunately, at the moment, Azure.NET SDK does not support this. So if you specify both of them, auto function calling functionality will be ignored, and you will only get your results based on your data source. And this could be a very common scenario because, for example, some of your data may be located in Azure AI Search, like in this example, but also you have some plugins defined in your application that contains another part of your data. For example, like here, there's like data plugin, and then it contains some email information, right? And in this example, it's hard-coded, but in real application, it could be, a call to your relational database, for example, or any type of data storage here. And usually, what you want to do, you want to combine them together and basically ask some questions based on all of this data. So out of the box, it's not supported, but we created an example how to basically address this limitation. So in this example, we are using function invocation filter. And what this filter does basically is it performs a request based on the user question. And then it checks whether this question was answered or not. And I'm going to describe it in more detail in a little bit. But if the question was not answered, we try to enable first source of information, which is Azure AI Search. So we check if it's not, if it wasn't used before, we enable it. If we enable it, we disable function calling because it's not supported together. And then we try to perform this request again. And then if the question was answered, we just simply return it to the user. If not, we try another source of information, which is function calling. So if it wasn't used before, we disable Azure AI Search, we enable function calling, and then we perform a request again. And if the request, if the message, if the user question was answered, we just simply return it to the user. And if not, we don't have any other sources of information here. So we just simply return this response to the user. And this filter, we of course can extend it. For example, we can add here another data source, for example, and try another source of information. But this is how you can basically switch between different sources of information like Azure AI Search, function calling, or any other data storage of your choice. And the way how it basically how we recognize whether the user question was answered or not. Basically, when we create our request, we use a response schema here. And what we want from the model is two properties. Basically, it's a message, which actually contains the response from AI. And then this property is answered. So basically, in this response schema, we ask model to provide a response, but also evaluate this response. Like, do you think that the message that you returned, do you think it's an answer to user question? And we tested it and it works really well. So the model is able to evaluate itself, and it's going to provide us an information whether this question was answered or not. And then we use this property in our filter here in order to understand if the user question was answered, we just simply return it, and if not, we just switch between different data sources. And yeah, and basically that's it. So in our solution, what we do, we import this filter. We import our data plugin with our information about user emails, and then we define our response schema and we ask questions. For example, how did Emily and David meet? And then, for example, if I run this application, I will be able to see that I ask my first question. By default, model doesn't know about this, so we enable Azure AI Search, and we can see that some response came from Azure AI Search. It also has this identifier doc1, which means that most probably it's from Azure AI Search, right? And then we ask our second question, for example, can I have Emily's and David's emails? And this information is not present in Azure AI Search, but it's present in our plugin. So in our filter, we do the switch between Azure AI Search and plugin, and we are able to get this information from our plugin. And the reason why we use filter here is because you can simply, so for example, as soon as you have filter, you can simply, enable it or disable it in your application runtime based on your, needs and business requirements. And also you can apply multiple filters like that, based on, again, your business requirements. So in the chat, I'm going to put the link to this example and also blog post that we published yesterday, and it contains more information about this example. And of course, if you have any questions, please leave them here, or feel free to leave them in GitHub discussions or under GitHub issues. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Dimitri. I really appreciate you diving in. If you do have any questions, if you could put them in chat, we'll have some time at the end for open Q&A. I'm going to dive into the next topic just so we can get through all of them. I'm going to go ahead and invite Shay to go ahead and go through a new announcement that we have for new vector search filtering enhancements. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sophia. Let me get this share on the road here. Can everybody see my screen?
I can. Can others as well?
Yep. Awesome.
Perfect.
Okay. So yeah, basically what I'll be talking about is a new way to pre-filter when doing vector searches via the vector data abstraction. So this is about people using interacting with vector databases via the vector database abstraction. There's already been a way to to do pre-filtering before we do the actual vector similarity search, but we're taking it a step further. So I put together a very quick code demo, and I'll go through it. So we won't. This is really very basic stuff. So I'm using Postgres here as my store just to. This is a bit slow. Yeah, I'm using Postgres here. I'm not going to go into the details. I have a fairly, fairly trivial kind of products collection here. As you can see, I'm just running through. If it exists, we delete it. We create it to have a completely, clean one. We upsert some information, some data into that collection. You can see I've got a serial number, which is a number, a name, which is a string, and here that's a little bit important for my demo. There's a tags property, which is actually an array, a string array. And the least important, the least interesting thing here is the actual vector. We're talking here about the filtering. So we don't actually care in this particular demo about what's happening with the vectors, but it is important to just get an idea. And here, what we have is a very, very simple minimal kind of search where we're going to be looking for the vector 1, 2, 3, which is, we've got one of them, and we're going to ask for the top 10 results. Let me run this thing so that you can see the results. And as expected, we're going to see foo and bar. Foo comes in first because obviously it's the most similar to the, it's the exact same vector. Now, let's say we want to do a pre-filtering on this. So the way you do this today, if you're using, the abstraction, you do something like this. I don't know if everybody here is familiar with this. I thought I dropped the what is going to become the legacy way to do this. This is basically a way to express a filter, right? So what we're asking here is to pre-filter all the records where the serial number is equal to 9. And if I do this, I add this filter, then obviously only one of the above. I'll scroll up a bit so that you can actually see the data here. There we go. So you can see that now we only see bar here because of this one here, the top one has serial number 8, so it doesn't pass the filter. Now we also have this this sort of filter. I'm just going to put it here, but we're not going to test it. The other filter that we support here is something called any tag equal to. So when you have a tags, basically an array of strings or a list of strings, then this is a way of saying, give me back all of the records where Z is inside the tags, right? So again, I'm not going to show this. Now, this has several problems, this sort of mechanism. So one problem here is basically now we have to extend this sort of syntax to everything that you might want to do. So there's comparisons like give me all the records where some number is bigger than 8. There's and not and or, for example, where the name is bar and the serial number is greater than 9. We basically have a full query language here, right? Which is something that's pretty hard to do. Like we could do this, we could build an entire query language, but that's simply not the most feasible thing. It also varies from database to database, and some databases are going to have more capabilities, whereas others have less capabilities, and it's not going to be practical for us to do something that will enable everything for all databases, right? It just doesn't make any sense. And the other thing that I don't love about this sort of mechanism is that it's very weakly typed. So the fields that we have here, you mentioned them by string, right? Whereas in other parts of when you're interacting with the vector database and you're searching, what we like to do in .NET, which is a strongly typed language, is use the actual properties, right? We don't want to drop down to strings, and then if we refactor, we rename the tags to something else, then this code starts to break because it's strings and so on. So it turns out now we're going to go into the new thing finally. It turns out that .NET has a very, very nice feature that's exactly for this, called link. I think everybody here knows link, but I'm not sure everybody knows what I'm about to show. So link is basically a way, it's basically an abstraction over querying inside .NET. What you see here, we've got a new filter property. This is a temporary name. We're basically obsoleting the old filter so as not to break people, and we're introducing the new filter. But when we actually release the stable version, obviously this will not be called new filter. This is just a temporary name. And the thing that this new filter property gets, this is a lambda that you see here that accepts a record. The record here, the type of that thing is the product, is this thing that you see here. It's just my .NET type. And what I do here is kind of like a where clause. So anybody who's used link and used the where operator, this is basically the same like a where operator. And I'm using C# to express the filter that I want to run over the vector database. Let's just run this to see that it basically does the same thing. It's all very simple, obviously. So we, just like before, we see only bar because that's the only record that fits here, right? And this basically addresses all the issues that I said before. First of all, you're using strongly typed C#. You're just writing .NET, which is very cool. So if you refactor this, the name of the fields on your .NET types, then this will get refactored just like any other .NET type. It's also much more discoverable, so you don't need to learn a whole new language here to express like how does this work? How do I express this? How do I express that? That's something you would need to learn. But instead, all you have to do is use C#, use that same .NET that you already know and love to express this. So that's pretty cool. What this also allows us to do is you can do arbitrary things in here. For example, if some provider out there, some vector database supports some fancy thing, then as long as it can be expressed in .NET, then that provider can translate that into its own filtering language eternally, right? That means that if you do something crazy here, it might not work on all the vector databases that are supported because different databases support different things, but at least we can express anything that we want, and the databases that do support whatever we express will work, whereas those who don't won't. So I do want to show some other examples here just to go a bit fancier, and these are things that you can't do today. So up to now, you've just seen something that looks nicer, but now you're seeing. So this specifically you actually can do today, but again, it's much more difficult to express. This is an AND condition, so both serial number equals 9 and name equals bar. This here now is something that you absolutely cannot do today. I'll paste another one in here. So in addition to the and, we now have also or and not, which is something that's not supported today. Here you've got a greater than operator. So I'm going to run this just to show you. Again, not supported today. We're basically extending like by a lot what you can now do with the kind of filters that you can express. So because both of these are greater than 4, you get both of them. But if I do greater than 8, for example, then you're going to get a different result, obviously. I'm guessing we're only going to see bar now. And again, this works on all databases. It doesn't matter which database you use. Now, something that I particularly like a lot. So the any tag equal to, which you see here below, is a way to express basically this operation contains, right? I love how link allows you to express something like in such a simple and idiomatic way without learning. So you don't have to learn how to express something like this in some filter language and a vector database or whatever. You're basically using a very, very intuitive .NET way. R.tags is just an array. So you can do contains on it and ask, give me back all of the records where the tags contain X. And if I run this, then that should give us back the correct results. Everything is very slow on my computer for some reason. Yeah, it's a little bit stuck even. Okay. Anyway, I think you guys get the point. So what we're going to what we're targeting basically is all the logical operators and not and or. We're targeting all the comparisons, equals, not equals, greater than, lesser than, greater than, equal, lesser than, equal. We're targeting various contains patterns. So either when you have a tags like a tags field like this, which is an array, and then you can do contains on it, or we also support. Let's see. No, it's actually really stuck on my side, so I'm not going to be. Okay, it's kind of back. So you can also, I'm just going to kind of improvise, but you can do something like this to bar and then contains r dot, oops, I don't want a string here, r dot name. So what you see here is a query asking, give me back all the records where the name is either foo or bar, right? That's the way to write something like this in .NET, and that will translate in most databases which support it, not all of them. And again, this is just the first step. Various databases have all kinds of funky things and very, very cool querying capabilities. And this allows us to support them all, basically, given that it's just Link and .NET. So whatever you can express here, we'll be able to add support for. And I think that more or less covers what I wanted to show. So thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you diving in. If folks do have any questions, feel free to put them in chat. We'd love to hear from you. And with that, I'm going to go and turn it over to Ben. We have a number of exciting updates for our process framework documentation and our work with Autogen. I see Jack on as well. And so I'll turn it over to Ben.
Hey, can everyone hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, great. All right, so cool. The first thing I want to talk about is documentation for the process framework. So we are super happy to say that we have finally got out some more documentation. I know folks have been asking for this for quite some time, so please go check it out. Let us know if it's helpful. Let us know how to make it better. All these things, yeah. So the documentation that we put out has some samples in it. It sort of starts with your, sort of very first process with 3 linear steps, takes you through how to do cycles, fan in, fan out, various patterns like that, all the way through human in the loop, and how to integrate the process framework with an external messaging system for human in the loop kinds of things. So please take a look at it and let us know what you think. Give us some feedback, and very keen to make it good. So. Okay, I think that's it for process. You want to go to the next slide? Okay, cool. So semantic kernel and Autogen partnership. So I know, you probably brought this up several times before and talked about it in office hours, but there is work being done. And so we just want to sort of highlight some of this really great work that's being done across both teams. So the first one is that Autogen is working really hard to integrate semantic kernel into their product. And so if you go take a look at their repo, right, they've got, even in the last few weeks, they've merged several work items, right? So they got assistance, let's see, SK assistance for agent chat, model adapters for SK and various things like that. So they're really sort of building an SK deep into the product. So that's super exciting, and we're working very closely on this stuff. Okay, next slide. And then also it goes the other direction too. And so semantic kernel is also working very hard to integrate Autogen features. Throughout the course of this month, you'll see lots of things coming in. One of the big things is that you're going to be able to host Autogen agents directly within SK and run them. So super excited for that. Next slide, please. And then sort of a slightly longer term is the core runtime stuff. So the process framework runtime and the Autogen 0.4 core runtime are being merged. And so we're sort of building this shared core agent runtime layer. And then on top of that, right, we're going to have various, runtimes that can run locally, they can run within Dapper, Foundry agent service, and various places like that. And then on top of this shared runtime that can run in all these places, we're going to build various patterns for agent coordinations, right? So group chat, hierarchical, React, Agentic One, process framework, etc. And so, this is all coming. Most of it's coming this month, and then some of this sort of shared runtime stuff will be trickling in a little bit past that. But lots of stuff going on here in the partnership.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. We have Jack on from the Autogen team as well. I would love to hear folks' questions, but Jack, anything that you want to share from the Autogen side as well?
No, I think Ben covered it pretty much. There's various cool things going in both directions. Yeah.
Perfect. Any questions folks have? I know in the past in office hours and in discussions, we've gotten a lot of questions about semantic kernel and Autogen. We have both teams. So if there are questions folks have, would love to dive into them. I see a hand up. Romeo, would love to hear from you if you want to come off of mute.
Hi, I have a question about the process framework. I've seen the examples and documentation, but from what I've seen, the cloud events are not yet fully implemented. So, for example, if I wanted to be able to handle events emitted externally, for example, from the front end, which is written in, say, React or something, is there a way to handle such external events or not yet? Or is there some form of proxy or other way to integrate the separate applications, for example, front end and back
Yeah,
end?
sure. So, so with the work that we got checked in last week to integrate with external messaging systems, it will cloud events will be sent out of the process.
And it looks like we may have lost Ben with his connection. But Romeo, we can definitely get to the question offline if Ben's not able to rejoin in. Let's just give it a minute.
Yeah, sure.
In the meantime, I saw in chat that there was a good question around filters as well. And then I do see there's another question for you, Shay, of what's the time frame for trying the new filter in the product? I was curious if you had a recommendation of when you think that'll be available.
Yeah, I don't have a precise date. We're working pretty hard, and we're going to be very likely delivering a preview of this. But it's not going to be. It's going to be probably in the time span of a few weeks, a month, but at maximum, I hope.
Okay, perfect. Are there other questions that folks have? Would love to hear from you as well, and we'll come back to that one, Romeo, and then we can always follow up offline too if I know Ben was having some internet issues. We have a snowstorm here in the Pacific Northwest today. But yeah, other questions folks have. Would love to hear from you. I see in chat, Vaishak, the issue that you have for GitHub. Well, definitely as a team, we go through and do our triaging. And so I can bring this up in our next triaging. Is there anything in particular you want to add to the issue, just as we have the group of Semantic Kernel on right now? I'd love to hear from you. Okay, if not, I do see a hand
Yeah,
up, Logan. Oh, hey, Vaishak. Yeah, I would love to hear from you.
yeah, so yeah, I was trying to say like I just documented the scenario and the sample file as well in the GitHub, so it might be helpful for your troubleshooting purposes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for
Yep.
providing all that detail and putting it in. We'll definitely take a look and triage it as well. I'm seeing some hands that are coming up. Logan, do you want to go first?
Yep, of course. So currently, I've been recently diving into the process framework, which I actually quite like. Thanks, guys, on that. I think that's amazing. The bit that I'm struggling on at the moment is what's the best way of actually, after the process is finishing, is returning up the data that I've built up over that process. What's the best way of returning that data? Currently, I'm using the kernel.data property, but I feel like there's a better way to do this, but I just don't know.
Yeah, that's a really great question. Looks like Ben has not been able to rejoin, but I do know in the sample there's a couple of different ways that you can go through for data storage as well. Um, we can definitely take this one offline unless there's anyone from the Semantic Kernel team who wants to dive in. Okay, yeah, Logan, I'll start an email with you and Ben after this
Yeah.
call, and we can dive into it there. But yeah, really appreciate the question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Perfect. Steve, I see your hand up. If you want to go next with your question, we'd love to hear from you.
Sure, thanks. Question regarding the assistance framework. It looks like OpenAI's just released, the reasoning models. O3 Mini just came out. O1's been out for a little while. Traditionally, until I think earlier this week, those reasoning models were not compatible with their assistance beta framework. They've just added compatibility for O3 Mini, but there's a parameter in there called reasoning effort, which essentially allows you to set how long the inference engine, I guess, runs or cranks on any particular call. Is that in the roadmap for Semantic Kernel? And if not, can it get added to have that property handled in the SK abstraction layer?
Yeah, really great question. I know Roger's been looking through a number of the models and O1 and O3 Mini. Roger, do you want to dive into the timeline that we have?
Yeah, I can jump in. So pretty much all the Azure and also OpenAI related calls through the semantic kernel connectors, they go through the SDKs, the underlying SDKs, both Azure and both OpenAI. Those SDKs at the moment they don't have O1. So actually, the OpenAI does, but the Azure one doesn't. We are going to have issues with the max tokens and other settings there. So there is no official response on the ETAs for this. But in the issues, you can overcome this through some handlers, through some workarounds. But for the moment, we don't have any official returns from the Azure SDK team, pretty much. But as soon as we have, we'll be happy to add those changes to the connectors and make those officially work.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Welcome.
Great. Thanks for the question, Steve. Other questions that folks may have? Not seeing anything else in chat. We'll give it a couple more minutes in case folks are typing or coming off of mute. We'd love to hear from you. But yeah, we would love to definitely hear from the items that we presented out. If you do have any questions, especially for the semantic kernel and autogen work, if there are any further questions that you have as well, feel free to come off of mute or put them in chat. Or if you think of it outside of office hours, we'd love to dive into it in our GitHub discussions. Hey, Logan, I see your hand. Would love to hear from you.
Yeah, just one final thing. On the Crew AI plugin, can you link some documentation to that at all?
Yeah, definitely. Let me find the .NET piece that we have there.
Thank you.
Okay, I've just put a link in chat to the PR for that. So hopefully, Logan, that helps. If there are other questions you have on it as well, please let us know. Other questions folks may have. If there aren't other questions, we may end office hours early today. I'll stay on in case there is anyone who is still typing or coming off of mute. But just want to thank everyone so much for the time and for joining in today, and look forward to seeing you at our next office hours. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.